Hello, everyone, and welcome to the V Podcast. My name is Ron Yakar, and today joining me is Dan Valach. Dan Valach is a seasoned HR professional with over 15 years of experience managing people at world-class organizations, including a 5-year stint as Senior Vice President of Human Resources at SimilarWeb. Dan is an HR mentor at Intel Ignite, Intel's startup accelerator, and he sits on the board of advisors at several different companies, including Woo.io and GrowthSpace. Today, he's a strategic HR consultant helping executives at companies like AppsFlyer, Lightricks, and Healthy.io structure their companies in the best possible way. Dan, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I want to jump right into what's on everyone's minds. The job market is changing dramatically in the last few weeks and months. We're seeing a market downturn. We've gone from recruiting in a hyper-competitive market to some companies doing mass layoffs. What are the implications for HR professionals?
So I think we're in the midst of the change. I think that there's still a lot of uncertainty about where will this go. There's a lot of hysteria around scale, around the hyper growth. We already see the change in recruitment. I think there's still an issue with recruiting development stars. That's not something that's going to change at all in my opinion. But we see that the market is starting to change. I think that maybe eventually this will change to a few years ago when it was not just a candidate market but also an employee market, and this will change the power struggle in this area. I think with more and more companies doing layoffs and more companies freezing their hiring, the way we recruit, the way we brand ourselves, the way we are as HR professionals look at our employees and look at the way we want to bring people in is going to change significantly. It's going to be harder to go into companies. It's going to be longer processes. I believe no more 1-2 day process and then we hire them other way. Today, in like a month, 2 months from now, it could take us 24 hours from the beginning of a process till the hire. Otherwise, someone else would hire this professional. It's going to change. Some areas are going to be harder for people to find job, while it was very, very easy. Less the tough technological side, but more on the marketing, G&A, sales areas. It's going to change. And I think the way we as companies look at the recruitment market is going to change significantly, mainly from a perspective of how we look to the candidates. How do we brand ourselves in this market, and are we strong enough to go through this crisis, and can we prevail it? So that's I think it's still in thinking in many companies, but I'm guessing that's the direction we're going to see.
That's super interesting. And I noticed that you mentioned employer branding a few times over the last few minutes. So I'm curious to hear, how do you think employer branding will change? What are some of the different strategies that companies might take in order to adapt to the new conditions of the market?
I think that there was already a negative buzz around the huge parties, the billboards, we are the coolest company, we have 24 flavors of ice cream, etc., etc. There was a buzz that was beginning a few months ago, and now I believe it's going to end. It's not the time for huge parties. It's not the time for amazing money spending just on look how fun it is here. It's going to move from being the shiny new thing in the high tech into value. We're going to look of what's the value we bring to our employees, what's the value we bring to our world and to the world. And I believe how strong are we? And I believe that's going to be the focus for the employer branding professionals, both on the employer branding and also on the employee experience side. We need to show our employees, we need to show our candidates, we need to show the world that we really bring value. that our employees get something from working at X, that there's a true meaning to what I do, and that it is a true product or a true company, and not someone that just focus on the outside, just focus on the packaging. The packaging should be nice also. It doesn't, it's not gonna degrade completely, but I believe that there's gonna be much less focus on the package and a lot more focus on the value we bring to both employees and the world.
So it sounds like employee experience is going to rely a lot more on the value of the product itself and what the company actually does, and a lot less on what's all of the perks and what's around it. So when companies think about how to communicate that meaning to their employees and how to generate that sense of meaning for them, what factors should they consider, and what can they keep in mind in order to do that successfully?
When I work with CEOs today and talk about how to communicate the change in this market, because it's it's a huge change in a short amount of time. I think that the major thing they need to do is be as transparent as possible. The communication should be very, very transparent. Nothing scary, unless there is something scary, but be as transparent as possible. Explain what are the changes we're going to do and why are we doing them. Talk about the significance of each and every employee we have in the company. Talk about the change in mindset that we need to do as founders, as management teams, and as employees. And also use your employees to think about maybe how to give value, what to do, how do we still make this an amazing workplace with each and every one of us contributing to it, not just we, the employee experience side, the HR side, the welfare side, whatever, make this a cool place to work in. What do we need to do in order to make the day-to-day look like something that is not look like something that is significant for all of us? So a lot of communication, very, very transparent as you can, and understanding that there's going to be a lot of changes at least in the next few months. Hopefully not so long, but at least in the next few months, there's going to be a lot of changes in our direction, in our communication, in the way we face the world.
I agree with you that transparency is key. And I also noticed that you mentioned that companies are going to need to create value for each employee individually. And I wanted to shift gears a little bit and speak about that. So the HR professional of the past, 20, 30 years ago, sat in a high floor of an office tower and they would summon people up to their office to be hired or fired. And that was kind of it. Mm-hmm. Today, they're expected to be much more among the people, to pay attention to people's individual needs, personalities, and perspectives. How can HR professionals during this time and in general in this new age make sure that they accommodate all of these different personalities and values?
It's going to be an interesting time for HR professionals. We need to understand that our job is crucial in helping the managers understand the frequent changes, understanding the different job environment that we're gonna face. So as HR professionals, we need to focus a lot on change management, on how to build plans to frequent changes, on communicating with employees in a way that they understand, in a way that they are on board, in understanding. You said this, but in understanding that it's much more personal. It's not just, okay, we're going to take the entire team and move it here. No, each member has its own motivation, his own aspirations. So we need to be very, very personal. I think it's the HR job to coach managers to understand their employee needs, every employee needs, and work with them accordingly. It's no longer one size fits all. While as in different times, maybe we could say, okay, it's one size fits all. It works, and we're running. Today, when we're less running, and there's much more, even time and room for growing each employee or talking to each employee and understanding their motivation engines and their aspirations. We need to pay a lot of focus on that. So the managers need to understand what brings value to this specific employee, to this specific, and then after we understand each specific employee, then we can grow to the team. Okay, let's build something together that is a good fit for our team, and growing up from that.
So you already mentioned a few things, but I'm curious to dig a little bit deeper. When managers are paying attention to the needs of each employee and they're starting to change their mindset away from the one size fits all, what specific things should they be paying attention to on the individual level and on the team level?
So the first thing each manager needs to understand is the motivation engine of your employees, of each employee. Why do people do what they do? Why do they want to work here? Why do I do above and how do I do above and beyond? What are the buttons that inside me that I need to push in order for that employee to work harder, to be more engaged, to have more impact on what I need them to do. So understanding the motivation engines through work with them, through conversations, through understanding this generation, that impact is a huge thing for them. So understanding the motivation engines of each individual, that's not a very easy task, but that's the first task that each manager needs to own, and understanding what impact means for each and every employee. Because when I think impact, I might think of something, and when I talk to my employee, that's not impact at all. He looks at something else. So understanding what impact means and understanding the language that they're talking about impact. So that's a very, once again, that's a very subtle way of looking at your employees. But if you own these three things: communication, motivation engine, and impact, and what does impact mean for the employee, then the employee is completely engaged.
I think that's an incredible response, and I think that all managers could gain a lot by focusing on those three factors. I want to hone in a little bit on impact. Can you expand on what you mean by impact and what that might look like for different employees?
So when we look at the current generation, we know that impact is something very, very significant for them. Impact is how do I change the world? What do I do to make this a better place for us to live in? And what's my fingerprint on this ever-changing world? And we're always looking, the people, the Generation Z and the other generations are looking to change the way things are today, to make a significant difference. And significant difference, once again, is very different between one another. But I don't just want to come to work, write my code, write my blog post, write whatever I do, build a product and move on. I need to understand what do I do. And that's very different between one person and another.
So when thinking about providing employees with an opportunity to make an impact, what kind of different initiatives do you think companies will take given the conditions of the market? And how do you think volunteering plays into those employee experience strategies that provide that meaning and that impact?
So there are two sides of impact. One of them is work-wise, and this I spoke about. You work with your employees in order to understand the changing market. That's I spoke about in the previous questions. And if I'm looking at from the employee experience side, then I think that volunteering is a very interesting way of looking at impact, because volunteering has an impact by the way, by default. We change the society, we help, we have an impactful play on the people that I'm working with, I'm volunteering with. It gives us, I think in today's market, it's extremely important because it gives us perspective. Oh my God, the company is firing, and then you go and volunteer with someone that is very, very sick, or has money issues, or whatever we decide, or we go and renovate a house for someone, and then we understand that we're privileged, and the perspective is extremely important today, regardless of the impact. But when I find my volunteering, the one that really makes me feel like I'm changing the world. That's the impact I'm looking for. That's the impact that us as employee experience are going to gain from it. It's much more impactful, for example, than, okay, let's go on a field trip. Let's, I don't know, go to the beach and play some volleyball. It's fun, but it's not impactful. And looking at what we need to do today and looking for employees that feel that they give an impact, if we have volunteering or something in that area that is embedded into our employee experience, I feel that we gain two very important points: the perspective and the personal impact. It's not just, once again, even volunteering is not one size fits all. I want to go volunteer with dogs. I want to go volunteer with sick people. I want to go volunteer with elderly people, whatever. And each one finds their own way. That's something that I think really can connect us to a goal, to a real goal in life.
First of all, I love what you said about perspective. I haven't considered that myself before, but really by volunteering, employees can gain a perspective on the good things that they do have and the privilege that they do have, and it makes them more resilient in the face of challenges. And I think that that's an incredible way to build resilience among your teams during difficult periods. And I also heard you mention that each employee will find their own thing. I want to know from your perspective as an HR expert, where do you see the value of team-wide or company-wide volunteering days together? And where do you see the value of skill-based volunteering that might be remote and individual? And how can managers who want to bring in volunteering balance those two to meet their goals?
So I would start looking at a company-wide volunteering or a team group-wide volunteering. Has a different. It's a very good way of bonding. We do something good together. We're not just we're giving back, and it's something that can connect us as a team. We see people not in their day to day. We help each other, and when I saw it when in teams that I managed that went and volunteered, I saw the different connection. I saw it softens the armor around people when they're in that environment, so the connection can be different. And then we have like a team connection that is from a different place than having a fun day out. It's like we do something together, we work together on something that is not our work, and we do it in the benefit of others, not just for us. And that's a different kind of connection, a much deeper connection than other connections that I feel are relevant. The other side is more on the impact and value kind of side. If I'm looking at a personal volunteering, if I find my type of volunteering, if I find it through my company, and I find something that I feel that I'm impacting the world, and that's something that gives me value, that's something that I believe helps my engagement with the company, because they built this platform for me to do that. It's more of like the connection between the company and the employee. We help the employees feel impactful.
So in the vein of the connection between the company and the employee, where do you see the ROI of volunteering from the company's perspective?
I think from the company's perspective, I think it helps. It reduces churn, in my opinion. I think that when we find something that really interests the single employee, then that's something that you will remember as something that the company connected me to them. That's one. The second thing is it's an engagement activity. I know that sounds a bit cold. It doesn't cost me any money directly. It costs me time that the employee goes to work. So I have an engagement activity that costs me time, and that's it. Nothing on top of that. We don't need to add anything to the budget in these crazy days. And the third thing, I can learn a lot about the employee from what he chose to do, how he chooses to do it. That can help me. If I'm going back to what I said before, that can help me understand as a manager, as a company, what are the motivation engines of this employee. And then I can use that in order to increase his engagement in other areas of work. So I think that's like these are the three areas that I look at them as ROI for the company.
Wow, I have to say, as someone who works all day, every day on volunteering and in this field, you're renewing perspectives for me and surprising me and exposing me to new ways of thinking. So I really appreciate it. My last question for you is there anything else on your mind that you would like to share? Anything that you would like to leave us with? Any recommendations you have?
When I read through your company and the way you work, and when I thought about the giving back to community that I faced in my past, I believe it should be much more impactful. I think it should be a significant part of our employer experience playbook. I think that understanding that giving back and talking about it as a company, as a CEO, as a founder, talking about the importance of it, but really believing it, not just looking at it as a tool for engagement, understanding that we are privileged and we should help the less privileged is something that I think is going to be very appealing to the generation that is joining the workforce in these years, and I believe it's going to make us better companies, especially during these crazy days that we don't know what's going on. And if we keep doing it, although budgets are going low, although there's a lot of stress, and if we keep doing it, that's a very important message that we send our employees and our future employees, that we're not just here to make money. We're here to make a change in the world. And I believe that's I think that's a very important subject to raise among our employees.
Wow. What a final thought to leave us with. Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.